community of practice. And incidentally, today's is the 25th session of community of practice, which is a platform where educators come and deliberate on issues that are of current needs. Uh, and I'm Jayashree Iyer. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jayashree, and I've been a consultant with the Adhyayan Quality Education Services for more than 2 years now. And before that, I have taught and been at different levels in schools across the country. And my last tenure was with the Heritage Experiential Learning School in Gurgaon. And I was in their leadership team. I was heading the middle school. And after I joined Adhyayan, my knowledge and my outlook to education has kind of become even more enriched. Having traveled across the country doing school reviews, I have learned a lot about what is the status of education in our country. And with me from Adhyayan today is Neha, who is the director, and we also have Annette and Gauri, who look at everything to do with what happens at the back end. And a big thanks to them, because without them, we will not be able to do anything like this on the virtual space. And before we move on, a little bit about the community of practice itself. And way back in April last year, when suddenly schools were plunged into this deep ocean called virtual learning. So this was a platform that was created basically for educators to come together so that we can support one another, we can collaborate, we can learn, we can discuss, and we can, more importantly, ask questions from each other to learn from one another so that we could go back to our school and we could implement whatever we have taken away from this platform. And now when we are ready to open a school and all over the world, when educators are looking at blended learning, so the most apt theme for our community of practice sessions was, what does a blended
मैंने
school
अपना
look
फोन
like?
चार्जिंग पे लगाया हुआ था
So
और यहाँ दे दो
um, yeah, I request everybody to go on mute, please, because there is some noise coming from the background. Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah. So, no, so what does a blended school really look like? And so, if we had to really talk about blended school and understand how we prepare for a blended school, so we would have to talk about so many different aspects of what a school looks like and how we run a school. So, we are running a 6-part webinar series out of, and today's is the 5th part of the 6-part series, and we have designed it in lines with the 6 key performance areas of the Adhyayan School Review. So we've completed 4 sessions, and today's is the 5th session, which is about the curriculum. So what does a blended curriculum look like is what we will be talking about today. And for this session, we have 3 very, very eminent principals from the City Montessori School in Lucknow. And incidentally, City Montessori School is the largest school in the world. With they have several campuses across Lucknow. And the 3 principals who we have today are extremely passionate about education, and they are really out, and they've done some outstanding work in their own campuses. And talking to them today is Spoky Wheeler, who is the founder and the international director of Adhyayan, and currently he is heading the Heritage International Experiential School. And so put together today on the panel with the 3 principals and Spoky, we have a huge wealth of experience in terms of, I think, nearly 100 plus teaching years. And so that says about the words of wisdom that we're going to be hearing today. And the first principal, the first speaker on today's panel is Nisha Pandey. She's been with the CMS since 2000, and she's taught at various levels, in her school, as well as then went on to become the coordinator, and right now she's the principal. She's traveled extensively within India and abroad, doing school visits and for workshops. And what's really, amazing about her is she's extremely passionate about school transformation, and she's taken several steps in this direction in her own campus. So welcome, Nisha. And the next speaker we have today is Sapti Divedi. She's also been with the CMS since 1992, and her expertise lies in ICT. She's taught computers at various levels, starting from degree college till, of course, school kids, in the junior, middle, and senior levels. And she's also an extremely committed principal, and she's also very keen to incorporate global competencies in her curriculum, and she's taken various steps in that direction for her own school. And we also have Shipra Upadhyay, who is also extremely enthusiastic about curriculum development in her school. And she's also been in the field of education and in CMS particularly for more than 16 years. And she's taken again several steps to enrich all aspects of all things that happen in her school. And so with the three principles from CMS, we are going to have a lot of ideas to take away about what is blended curriculum and how they've been able to incorporate enrichment in their curriculum during the virtual teaching and learning, as well as going forward what they're going to be doing. And so Spokey is going to be talking to them. And so welcome to everybody once again. And now I hand over to Spokey to take it on from here.
Spokey, you're on mute.
It is lovely to be talking to a community of educators and educational leaders about the curriculum, which, as those of you who have already undertaken the ADIAN school review will know, is the toughest nut to crack of all. It's the one, even when COVID isn't around, that we've had to think hardest about as leaders. And it has certainly exercised me over these past 2 years, putting on that old familiar jacket that I thought I never would again, of a school leader working at Heritage. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to host this session today. I've been watching this community of practice energetically throughout, but today's special. We started working together with CMS in 2014. This has been a longevity journey, and I have been hugely impressed throughout with the commitment and the endeavor and the compelling vision of CMS. And to have three of its principals here today to be able to help us understand an institution with a proud past and, I guess I would say, a potent future. For a long time now, many of us who have been working with the national curriculum have been challenged with actually seeing the curriculum more as a syllabus. Just how much can we manage to get in time? And so our conversations, sadly, have too often been around content and around the passion of the portion. In some ways, this pandemic, while it has been an enormous challenge, is an opportunity. And it's come at a time when the NEP has actually endeavored to modernize learning and to reduce the curriculum. So for many of us now, one prompted by an emergency, the other by an opportunity, we have the chance to deliver a curriculum which reflects our vision and what it is we would hope our children should be able to learn and to achieve. I'm beginning, if it's okay, in reverse order, and I'm going to ask Shilpa if she can begin. It would be great if each of the three contributors today could spend a minute talking about their individual campus, their branch, to give us a sense of it. But honestly, I will stop you if you go on beyond that minute. I will endeavor to have a conversation with each of you. I can see that there are questions already coming up, and it will be great if you can continue as a collaborative audience to share those with us as the session goes on, and I will endeavour to have as much time as possible so that we can speak together. This is one of those lovely occasions where I'm asking the questions rather than pretending I know the answers. Shilpa, it seems to me that one of the things that you have focused on particularly is beginning in your campus to move away from simply the idea of competition and towards collaboration. And I guess my first question is to you. You have, I think, a metro study, Metro Watch, which has been the vehicle for you to begin to do that. Could you tell us something about that, please, Shilpa?
Thank you, Spooky. And yes, I have consciously made an endeavor to move away from the spirit of competition that pervades the entire education system of our country. And I thought with some, creative ideas, we could possibly bring students together to work together and accompany each other on the path of learning. That was the idea, because not everybody knows everything, and what we know we get to share. That was the basic idea. And this idea of Metro Watch arose from a history lesson where children were, they asked a question to the history teacher that why should we study the history of Delhi? For what? So the teacher was a bit perplexed how to explain it, that why should you study history? And a class 8 student asking who's been studying history for the past 2 years. And so we also thought over this, that why do we study history? And we kind of talked to each other. We got onto that platform where we talked about the journey of a city and the journey of a civilization, of a culture, and how years add to it. And we realized that our children just know the surface level information about certain things, that this is it. And this question also arose from the fact that the teacher just said, that Delhi was built 7 times over. So it kind of came in. So we thought, let's use this online platform and go into a deep research based project. And we talked to the people and to the children basically, and they said, we want Lucknow to become the best city in the world, to be the best metro, and so we said, then how do we learn? How do we become it? So they themselves decided that we need to research on what metros look like. So because they are young students, our school is only up to 8th standard. So we did not want to burden them with too much research so that they lose interest at this age. So we said, okay, let's focus on the 4 major metro cities of India. And we began, and we picked up the city days, the cities of, I did not know that all the 4 metro cities have a particular day they celebrate as, Delhi Day, Kolkata Day, Mumbai Day, Chennai Day. I did not know that. So, and then we found that Kolkata Day was the closest from the time we had decided on doing this. And 24th of August was that day. So we decided, let's see what we learn about this city. And I was amazed the way the children researched. They went deep into everything, even bringing up things like, you will see if Neha, we could have one of the slides which shows, they researched on the palanquin that used to carry the zamindars from one place to the other, the landowners. Suddenly they realized that there is so much more to a city than just, eateries and malls and this. They suddenly realized, if you could go to this Calcutta Metro slide, the first one below Kolkata Metro. Yeah, if you look at this picture of the palanquin, yes, this picture of the palanquin was the one which they and then a few of them wrote a few stories. They researched about so many things that were related to the palanquins, and this was true learning happening. They were bringing in their ideas and they were sharing it across. No one was meeting each other, but still they were connected, they were engaged, and they wanted to tell and know. And this was the first time I was seeing this enthusiasm in the children, that they wanted to share what they have. Otherwise, generally what used to happen in the class was that the so-called position holders and toppers would keep all their treasures to themselves, and the so-called backbenchers and non-achievers were relegated to a corner. But here people, they had to pull together their resources. We found out so many good artists. We found out people who were so good with computer graphics at this age, and we did not know, we had no idea about this. So it was like a deep delve into looking at the beautiful talents of our children. And the best idea was that they pulled in those talents, they brought them together, and they came up with something which was relevant, because they were trying to juxtapose it onto their own city and find out what they can do. And then we linked it to a long term goal, that was attainment of a sustainable city, of making our own city a sustainable city, and how to go about it. So keeping the flavor of the city alive, that was the whole idea. So we went through all this, and we found that when we work collaboratively, it is so much easy and so much fun. And the enthusiasm and the spirit was like unbeatable. They've already done two. On March 13th they will have Chennai, and later they will do Delhi in detail. But the enthusiasm has not ebbed at all. So I think that was a beautiful journey we had, and this sense of accompaniment, I hope, will persist and will go on. And we are seeing it now as people are taking up service projects again and again to help their peers or their juniors. They're doing things like they are helping their juniors revise spellings, and doing mental maths with them in their free time, so that they come up to that level, so they feel responsible for each other. And I think we've done a massive job of removing away that spirit of competition and bringing collaborative norms together. Thank you.
Right. Shipra, thank you. So on the one hand, I love listening to this. You talk about research and the children focused on research, but it sounds to me that what you've been doing is looking at the curriculum in terms of interest, not simply syllabus requirement. And you also discussed the way in which you discovered children's talents that weren't necessarily evident before. To what degree did your classrooms adapt to enable you to deliver this? Because I'm hearing peer learning here. I'm hearing the opportunity of children to being able to work together in collaboration. What did it look like, Shipra?
We had children reaching out on their own, suddenly, like when we would find out that what has happened during this week. We made a project, outline, and we divided it into, meaning this is my teachers doing it, into, weekly segments. And then at the end of the week, they would get back together. They'd find out the children have gone ahead and made their own groups, to look into various areas, to get together. And someone has offered that I would make the PPT while you do the text work. And what I found was the culture of appreciation, which is generally missing in our educational institutions. They were appreciating each other. Thank you, you are good at this, and you came ahead and you did this. So this was very, very appealing to what was taking place. And yes, as you said, we moved beyond the curriculum, but we kept that interest. They understood that why they need to study history. If they have to learn, they have to look at the past. They can't possibly make all the mistakes in their own lifetime to learn. So they kind of understood that we have to learn from what has happened so that we can move ahead and at a faster pace. And the classroom became a place of a lot of bonhomie, a lot of reaching across. And the best thing I found was that my topper, who would sit on a pedestal and like look at everybody as if he was Gautam Buddha and everybody else were the recipients of his gyan. And he was suddenly flummox because he didn't know how to work the digital space. He didn't know how to, and then he realized that there are so many things he needs to learn. And he came off his high horse and he became such a changed person in these weeks. So I think that has really shown that the classroom is a space where we can really give in our best and get back the best.
That's that's a lovely anecdote. It sounds to me, though, that this is almost a deliberate cultural strategy for the school, not just for this project, in terms of promoting collaboration within the classroom. And you were saying in terms of students providing curriculum coaching for all.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a couple of service projects running where now the older students have taken on the responsibility of their juniors. They have themselves come forward and said, ma'am, can we, when we are free, can we take a substitution period in one of the classes and look at, helping students learn up spellings? Because spellings is one thing which has really gone down in this online mode, because students would just quickly, with the help of the Grammarly or anything, they would do the spell checks. But now when they've come back to school, they don't know, even a spelling like fine is being spelled as FIEN. So this, they themselves realized that where it was going wrong, and they came up with this idea, and I was so encouraged by it. And it was all because they reached across classes, across classrooms, and across levels we had created unknowingly.
Um, uh, you've also done some work around this in terms of alignment with some of the SDGs. Would you like to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, we looked at the fact that what was one common element in all these metros, apart from their history, their culture. What about the 21st century? What was common? And we found the metro rail. It was common, everybody was excited in these cities. Everybody was excited about this. And Lucknow also got a metro rail, for 3-4 years back. And so, but it is not really picking up in the city. So we thought, let's do a project with the Metro Corporation to bring about greater awareness of the use of metro in the coming weeks, so that, the city becomes, more, what would I say, cleaner, because we are really struggling with pollution levels. With people using the metro, it would be faster, there would be less traffic jams. So we looked at the SDGs number 7, 9, 11, and 17, which are affordable and clean energy, industry, innovation, infrastructure, sustainable cities and communities, and partnerships, the greatest, which we looked at, partnerships, how people of the city will take charge of the infrastructure, nurture it and take it forward to make a difference to the life of everyone who's living in that city. So I believe if my 400 would go out and do it, then we would have very soon 4 lakh people thinking about these things.
That sounds to me like a vision worth fighting for. Shipra, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be back to you with questions towards the end. Trapti, I guess I've got a particular interest in listening to you, Trapti, because I am now also the proud member of a school which has experiential in its title, although I have to be really honest and say the heritage is challenged in spelling because it misses the first E off, and we just see ourselves as experiential. You've been really looking at the idea of experiential learning programs to some degree, I guess, as a consequence of the challenges that children are experiencing online, and the absolute commitment that no child should be left behind. Could you take some time and talk us through that, please, Trapti?
Yeah, thank you, Skoki. We are a small campus, and this campus is located in the old part of the city, where the parents are mostly from a very financially disadvantaged background. So we have seen that many of the children dropped out. We have been trying to help them out the way we can. And the device sharing was one biggest problem, because of which they would prefer that the older children would attend the classes and the younger ones would be missing out on the classes. So we were holding extra classes for them in the evening when the parents had the devices available. We were already 3 months into this online teaching mode when we realized that the students and the teachers were all really, very engrossed in using all the educational tools. But how long can those tools be effective was the question that rose in our minds, because At times it used to happen that the camera is off and the teacher is trying to get the child to answer a particular question and they would not be able to because maybe they're not even there. So these kind of problems that the teachers were facing. So we thought, why not do something interesting which would make the students be more engaged. They are active participants in the process of learning. They own the learning. It's not that something that is being fed into them, but they accept that it is their own independent learning that they have to build on. So that is why we thought of the experiential learning program. And Spooky, let me be very frank in saying that this idea came from the Heritage School to me because I had done one of the instructional leadership courses. And in Ashrafabad campus, that is my campus, we had been dabbling with this project on and off, but it was something that never picked up consistency. So to speak, these narrow lanes that we have to navigate, transportation is such a big problem, time constraints, structured timetables, all these things were tying our hands down and we could not really do it in a proper manner. We did try it out for a particular class, but then, the feel of it was lost because we could not carry it on to the next class and do it in all the classes and sections. So we thought that in this online mode, with the help of virtual tours, these technological tools that are available to us, with the help of which, without going anywhere, we can visit places, experience it, see the sights and feel the sounds and read about it. So that is how we started it off. But we wanted to build it into the curriculum as well, because we did not want it to be something segregated from the curriculum. Otherwise, the interest of the students is lost. Those who are intrinsically motivated, all those students are really very charged up and they take charge and take the lead in taking something new. But those who are weak in studies or those who are not very motivated, we wanted to keep them also engaged. So that is why I said we did not want to leave any child behind. We wanted to make sure that everybody was engaged. That is how we took this project on. And then we piloted it for a particular subject in a particular class. The best part, Spooky, I must say, is that all the campuses collaborated a great deal, and we realized that we have a real resource in teachers and middle level leaders who could help us in building a new project and making sure that we implemented it really very well. So whether it was designing of the rubric or whether it was designing the teacher's toolkit, everybody collaborated, put their minds together. There was a lot of forming, storming, and norming of all the documents and templates that we were designing. This process took a long time because, if the plan is not well made, it is very difficult to implement. So that is how we started off. And then once we saw the success indicators in a particular class, we saw how engaged the children were. You would not believe that we had some children interviewing each other over WhatsApp, recording the interviews, putting it on YouTube, some of them designing Google Forms for taking feedback from parents. I'll just take an example. We had this topic of allergies in biology. So they designed their own survey forms, they designed their own ways in which they could gather the information, collect it. And then another aspect of this was the integration of subjects. So it was not just localized to biology, they did the surveys, then they converted into charts. So mathematics, then computer science, all these subjects were incorporated into one project. So it was like, it helped us in assessing the skills of the children also, because that was another factor that was really very, not very authentic when we were doing online assessments. We realized that the students were all getting A's, everybody was getting full marks. So we had to find a way to assess whether actually learning is happening or not. So when these experiential learning projects came up, then we realized that children had so much potential. Some of them were really waiting for an opportunity like this to be able to take on something new and build new knowledge and create something that they could be proud of. So that is how we went about it. And we have some student sample work also for people to see if anybody's interested. And Neha can share those slides where students' work has been put up. So you will see, once we had done it for class 7, and then later on we took it down to class 6 and 5, and even class 4 and 3 students, they were involved in creating projects where It was about, yes, slide number 14, if you could show me, Neha, please. So here there you can see that they designed their own, word cloud. They had the links to the videos that they had uploaded, the kind of research that went into it. And then they were also talking about what was happening around them. They were discussing the impact of this pandemic, the pros and cons, I would say, because not everything went haywire, not everything went wrong. We could do something new in this year of disruption and try something, experiment with new things and make sure that we did it successfully. So this child here has prepared a pie chart when they were talking about diseases and health and hygiene and what precautions they have to take up. So this is one work where I feel that was very important, where the children were focusing on research. They learned those important skills of global competencies and global citizenship education. So where we talk about collaboration, creativity, we also talk about the awareness of what is happening in the world around them. Once we start building the students in such a way, creating the students in such a way that they have a global perspective, they have a voice to talk about what is happening, they have an opinion to say that this is right and that is wrong, that is happening in the world. So this is how gradually we are trying to build into this experiential learning program also the global citizenship education factor.
So I'm very interested because what you've talked about is a developing program that became transdisciplinary in nature. But I love that idea of, well, one of the things that working with children and engaging them in their own learning meant that we were able to assess their skills rather than the artificially technologically inflated numbers that they responded to in terms of the tests. I am hearing a theme for CMS here, which sounds like collaboration. That's got to be something that brings a real smile to my face. Talk to me just a little, Trapti. The impact on the ordinary child. You talked about this as a project that began with grade 7 and then you discovered it was just as relevant to 6, 5, 4, and 3. What has been so far? Because I don't hear this as an end-stopped journey. It seems to me that this sounds like a strategy for engaged learning for the future as well as the present. What are some of the impacts you've seen, maybe in terms of the outcomes of children, but particularly also some of the practices and processes of teachers?
You're absolutely right. This is not something that would just stop here. We want to build on it and we want to carry it forward. And we want to continue with this idea of blended learning, because I forgot to mention one thing, that teachers were not bound by the structured timetable as they were earlier in the offline mode. Here they were available in the evening. They were having meetings with the students in their groups, because students had formed their groups. Like I was saying, some students had device issues, so they could not be available in the morning, they were available in the evening. And that was the time when students amongst themselves, like Shipra also mentioned, they decided who's going to be doing what. If a child did not have a laptop, they tried learning to make a presentation using a mobile phone only. Those who were not even having mobile phones, they said, okay, I'll design the blueprint of the project, what it should look like, and then you can, the one who has the laptop or the ability to do it on a mobile phone can do it. So within the student groups, there was a lot of collaboration as well. So creativity, collaboration, ICT definitely into this project. Then if I say about teachers, teachers definitely had to really understand, it was very important how they understood the relevance of doing an experiential learning through the digital mode. If they had conveyed it to the students in the wrong manner, it would have completely gone down the drain, I would say, because it would not have been as effective as it has turned out to be. So definitely teachers had to change their strategy for teaching. They had to give the autonomy to the students to be able to design something on their own without consulting the teachers for minute details, to be able to showcase their creativity. So they had to actually let the children go, they are not in the classroom, they are at home, they are doing what they want to do in the way they want to do, not the way it has been described by the teacher that you should have this and you should have that. We gave them a lot of freedom. Some of them who did not have anything to do with ICT, they had to, they made something on a paper, on a chart, they designed, they put their ideas down. So that way the teachers also learned that the students' creativity is something that is flourishing, and they have to understand that, they have to accept it, that things can be done in a different manner. And all the teachers really did a very good job at that as well. Have I answered all the
It's,
questions?
look, for each of you today, this is a snapshot of a huge album that each of you are developing. I just want to take two things a little further. You talked about the nature of your catchment with very varying socioeconomic backgrounds. Have you found that this work on the experiential curriculum has been able to, and particularly by breaking down the straitjacket of the timetable, is it giving some children who otherwise wouldn't have had access to digital learning through collaboration and sharing?
Yes, definitely, because why I'm saying definitely is because I've seen it in the classrooms when we were observing the online classrooms, and teachers conducted a sort of an interview of the child, asked them to give their feedback when they presented the experiential learning project that they had prepared for themselves, for their groups. So the kind of questions that were being raised by the other students definitely showed that they were involved and engaged in creating this project. And if I may say that students who were not so confident earlier, I could hear them. That was one thing that really amazed me, that the amount of confidence that this independent learning has built into the children has really been a differentiating factor.
And it's, I guess it always comes to us as a surprise, because whenever we're engaged by others in learning, we get excited, we get enthusiastic, we become committed, and I think that's really powerful. Can I just, for a while though, take it a little bit further? You've done some work around this in terms of the global competitiveness, haven't you? Would you like to tell me a little about that as well?
Right now, we are just starting with this because this is the first year in which we have introduced this topic to the students, that they have to learn when they're talking about monuments. Suppose, for example, we say there are monuments in India, especially in old Lucknow, you will find a lot of old monuments with a lot of history. The history of Awadh lies where I'm sitting right now. So this is the place where it all started when we talk about the revolution and whatever. So when they compare with, when they're talking about monuments, they can compare with monuments which are there in other countries. I'm talking about grade 3 right now. So this is where they have this chapter of monuments in their social studies book, and that we tell them to correlate the information that they have around them with the information which can be collected about other monuments across the globe. So if I just give one example for this Rumi Darwaza, which is there, the Rumi Gate, which is in Old Lucknow. This is actually based on a design from Constantinople in Rome. So that is where the design for this particular monument was picked from. So when the children are able to make a connect with something which they see every day, or with every week they visit that particular place because it's on the way to anywhere else in the city, that is where they are able to understand their place in the on the planet and what they have to do about it. So gradually we are going to build on it and carry forward our global education in this format.
Hey, that's brilliant. Thank you. I must say that the Avian team has always very much enjoyed going to Lucknow for three reasons. One of them is CMS, without question. The other is the rich opportunity to visit temples and great places like the Rumi Gate. And I've got to be really honest here, to also buy chicken, the material. So to Trapti, that's really interesting. And I've been seeing some of the things that are coming up on the chats, which are really going to promote debate and discussion later on. Nisha, could I turn to you now, please?
Sure.
So your focus is about how do you bring scientific approaches, not science, to the curriculum through the use of data. And I guess that it would be great to get a small overview of that first, but then also to see the degree to which, and I guess this is a theme that Trapti has already begun, the degree to which that will then help you to better serve students of different abilities, of different backgrounds, of different talents. So could you tell us a little about the way in which you have begun, that you have been using data to bring a greater degree of scientific coherence into the work of the curriculum?
Thank you, Spokey. I just want to take you to the time when I joined the school in the capacity of the principal. And I started attending the analysis meetings which were conducted by the management. Now, this is where I really started getting interested in data. And I was convinced that the use of data would enhance learning outcomes, academic performance. And a thought struck me that if as a school head, I could take this practice back to my school, where I do not limit it just to the board classes, but across the school, that is at the K-12 level. And then it also struck me that what if the analysis is done at the principal level, the middle level leaders level, the teachers level, the students level, and also some part of the data is shared with the parents as well. This I felt a revolution, and that's how I really became interested in data. And I started working upon it. And data really helped us to identify the strengths and the weaknesses of the students. And then we could strategize, plan accordingly, and arrange special classes for the students based on their requirements. So this is how I felt the scientific approach to data was very, very essential to bring about a lot of improvement in the performance, academic performance of the students, and the learning outcomes of the students as well.
So looking today, talk through some of those learnings that you've had and the impact that has had in terms of the school, your teachers and students, in terms of the use of data.
Mm-hmm. So I feel a lot of impact is already visible, and we started off doing analysis meetings at every level of the school, as I just mentioned, and we felt that the data was very good. It was which directions we need to take. So based on
Nisha,
yeah.
I think the internet is a little flaky. Yeah.
You've got it now. That's great.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's good. Yeah.
Okay. So I really don't know from where you asked me. To say we conducted a lot of surveys, and the data was generated at all levels, and we generally organized personalized classes. Some additional study materials were given to the students and shared with the students. Counselings that were done. We also did some kind of visits to the children's house during this pandemic. Online space, we did e-visits of the houses of the children, so that a lot of counseling could be done. And of course, we had the special classes that we organized for the brighter students, and even for the ones that required support. I would also like to mention that a lot of trainings were organized for the teachers, for the students. Initially, the trainings were organized by IT department, teachers. Gradually, this training was taken up by the teachers. It was shared with everybody. It really impacted performance of the teachers as well as of the students. Now, what you see here in the screen is the ISOR and the enrichment classes. Now, ISOR classes are very, very unique to City Montessori School. They cater to the brighter lot of students where we motivate them, encourage them to push their boundaries so that they can perform beyond their potentials, and they can perform even better. And of course, for the enrichment students do have the special classes also, where we give them additional support. Now, this is the analysis that we conducted for the enrichment students. And depending on the requirements, we had the individual needs catered to all the students.
So
Thank you.
it seems to me that this is a great example there of how granular detail can help to capture a child's need and then identify the impact that you believe needs to occur. I'd just like to go back for a moment because I heard something that really excited me and was familiar. You said that to begin with, they were special classes that were run by IT, but actually what became was almost like a professional learning community where the teachers would put up their hands and say, I can do that. And so the training then became owned by the teachers as well. Is that correct?
We workshops, PSCs organized for the teachers. Materials were shared with the teachers. They researched on it. They came back. They discussed, and this helped to improve the my video is not working. My video. Can you hear me, Spokey?
So
Yeah, Nisha,
yeah,
go on. Yeah.
Okay, my I think the video is not getting switched on. So a lot of trainings were organized. In fact, we had a lot of trainings being conducted for the students as well. And the beauty of this was later on we observed that the students, they took up the trainings and they trained their other peers. So a lot of trainings were happening, and it was really beneficial for everybody.
I think that's one I picked up at the very beginning of your conversation with us today. Two key things that really interested me. One, which you've just described, which was stakeholder engagement. So it sounds like you have expanded the remit in a way by involving stakeholders in it. But there was one piece, you didn't use this phrase, but I think it was what you were saying, that there has been increasing vertical alignment as a consequence of using data as well.
Yes, absolutely. Its data is not being now restricted to the board classes. It is all across the school, being used extensively by everybody, by the school head, that is me, by the middle level leaders, by the teachers, by the students as well. And that is making it very, very powerful because they are able to understand the importance of data. It is quite revealing to them. And they, with the help of data, they can understand which are the areas that they really need to work upon.
That's really helpful. I'm also very interested in one other element. While, like many of you, over the last months, we've been bringing our grade 10 and 12s in terms of their preparing for and taking part in examinations. This last week was the first week we'd begun the process of getting the rest of the school in. And our conviction was, and I think it probably was accurate, that we shouldn't rush to try to catch up with the curriculum, but we should look at the social and emotional curriculum. And so our aim has been, and will be over the next week to two, to get kids to have fun together, obviously socially distanced. And I think that you've been using data in terms of well-being in supporting the socio and emotional welfare of the children. Could you tell us something about that, please?
Sure. We've tried to understand the socio-emotional issues faced by the children, and we've guided them effectively. Now, our school conducted the Child Well-Being Survey to explore the students' life and their sense of well-being. Now, helping the students analyze and comprehend serious issues like gender equality. Now, our school has 2 counselors, and they've been really doing a great work in this time of the pandemic. And while the children are coming back to school, now the students were guided to overcome the health hazards and cope with the stress. They were also encouraged how to deal with the pandemic and even the after effects, especially when when they were feeling stressed and anxious. Now, with the help of this well-being survey that you're talking about, that we conducted, we were able to find out the solutions to overcome their shortcomings and work on the activities that one should do to improve their mood. Now, being aware of the health and the hygiene, and also, realize whether the students, should realize whether we also made them realize whether they were bullied in any phase of their life. Now, the main aim of the well-being survey was to make sure that they are feeling happier and they're feeling connected. And what I would like to say is, if you see this data that has been put up out here, we created the e-counselors room. So here we see that there were around 288 students who visited. There was parent counseling happening. There was individual counseling happening where students were coming and meeting the counselors. There was a follow-up of the counseling done by the counselor. Then the e-class visits, that is the counselors were visiting the classes. Then the number of students who voluntarily took help. There were some children who would come for help themselves, while there were others who were brought by the teachers. There were others who were brought by the parents. And of course, there were regular online counseling sessions that were on. So I'm sure with this kind of counseling that is going on in our campus and the kind of data, the follow-up that is happening, I'm sure we are helping the children to come back to the normal routine. And even the teachers are constantly on a watch out to check the behavior, any behavioral changes in the students. So I'm sure, these are going to definitely help to normalize the students and help them come back to school. Now, also, I would like to tell you, because we've been talking about the academic output out here, our counselors have been trying to understand the cognitive ability of the students, and they've helped them to acknowledge their abilities. Now, they've been guided through various techniques of counseling dealing with individualized needs of the students. And of course, they've been provided with simple and effective strategies of learning to increase their retention power also.
Hey, so it reminds me today, the reason why we have sessions like this is because we learn so much, and we learn so much from our colleagues. And it seems to me really interesting that in a school network where the head of the network is critically interested in evidence-based policy making, it seems to me that what we have been seeing here this afternoon has been evidence-based policy making, which has come out of a reality which is called COVID, but that it's been driven by vision. I've heard about the movement from competition to collaboration. The determination that all children, as far as is possible, should have an equal opportunity, equal access to learning, and that no child should be left behind. And most recently here, this conversation around, so if we collect data, that will support many things, but one of them it will look at is differently abled children, whether they are the brightest or those that are experiencing challenge. This has been a fascinating continuing story, and I can't wait for COVID to calm down, so as I can get my next invitation to CMS and to see some of the practices actually in real time. Neha, now, I hope you are impressed by the fact that I've identified the half hour that we wanted to be able to have. And you may well want to manage this, and some of it may well be questions to our individual presenters today, and some of it may be observations from the floor. Neha.
Thank you, Spokey. And that was really nice. Lots of things that one has understood of what's happening and how this situation, though very challenging, we've all seen something that we could, do out of this situation at present. So what we'll do is we would like to put the floor open for questions. If anybody would like to particularly ask any question to, Nisha, Shipra, Trapti, or even Spokey. And while we are, we like everybody to take a minute, absorb all of what was said. I know that you can't absorb it in a minute's time, but I'm sure there's something on the top of your head that's going on and you want to ask something. Just put that down on chat. While Jayashree is also going to launch a poll. Jayashree? So we can all take a minute. There is a question already on the chat, but we'll just wait for more people to put it.
Thank you, Neha. Yeah, so we will launch a poll. I would request Annette to launch a poll. Now that we've heard several ways by which our three speakers have, taken steps to enrich their school curriculum. So if we could kind of think now going ahead, what are some of the things that we would want to do to enrich our own school curriculum? So Annette is going to launch a poll, and there are several options in that, and you could choose multiple options. So Annette?
Yeah, Jayashree, I'm unable to launch the poll. Neha, can you do it?
Neha,
yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Done.
Yeah, so it's a straightforward question. What are some of the following you would incorporate to enrich your school curriculum? This is going ahead in the blended school. So take a minute and see what are some of the things that you could quickly incorporate in your own existing school curriculum.
The only problem with the poll, Jayashree, is I wanted to tick all of the boxes.
Oh, yes. Yes, Koki, I can get that. I really get that. So ultimately, I think we will have to do all of that, but immediately going ahead as you prepare for blended school. So what are one or two of those which you would, mandatorily kind of incorporate in your curriculum so that it gets enriched? So maybe we could look at it that way. And yeah, so at the end of it, we also added virtual field visits, because I thought initially, before COVID, the pre-COVID times, you would have never thought of a virtual field visit, right? So we would always have thought of taking students on field visits actually on site, but then now this has opened up even a virtual space. We could think of doing field visits in the virtual space. So I think the virtual learning itself has opened up a lot of opportunities which we would have never ever thought of earlier. So there are innumerable options there. Yeah, so can we end the
Can
poll?
I end?
Actually, I would like to say here that I went ahead and picked everything,
Oh,
because
really? Wonderful.
because 90% of the things we were already doing, in one way or the other with the new blended thing we are following.
Right.
For some strange reason, Jayashree, when I'm sharing the poll results, I cannot see anything. Can you see that?
Oh,
See
okay.
them really well.
Yeah, we could see them. We can see them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
It is interesting, isn't it, that the majority of these which seem to have scored highest are about engaging the whole child, not just a particular project to focus on. So that's really interesting. Shall we move to some questions or observations from the floor, Jayshree?
Yes, sure. There was already one question which had come right in the beginning. So I'll start with that. That is this is this question from Hassan Abdul Ghani. And the question is, in order to develop skills and holistic approach towards world issues as well, how should the curriculum be delivered using hybrid learning or experiential
Wow.
learning? How should it be delivered?
Serious question, but CMS are probably in a better place than anyone else. One of the three of you like to make a quick response to that?
I would like to say that to Hassan, that what is hybrid learning? It is actually a blend of all types of learning: synchronous, asynchronous, offline, online. So if we are talking about experiential learning, that is also a form of blended learning. So we combine all elements together. Whatever means is available to us, which is best for the students, can be used, wherever, whatever is most effective in making sure that the students um, are aware of what is happening in the world, they are learning new knowledge, that should be used. Whether it is blended or experiential or hybrid, I don't think that matters. What matters is that learning should take place. And whatever works best for a particular group of students, that would be most effective.
One of the things that I think I heard Shipra saying earlier, where she was talking about that we couldn't go out and do field work anymore. And suddenly we had learning without boundaries, using the virtual world to take us wherever we wished. And my guess is a lot of us have discovered really rich resources that we never realized existed before, most of which are free. That's right, isn't it, Shipra?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a discovery, and it was so good that people shared it with each other without any inhibitions. That was still the better part.
Yeah. I think I have one observation, is that I stopped trying to ask myself whether I was teaching virtually, physically, in a blended or in a hybrid way, whether it was synchronous or asynchronous, and started to go back to, and I hope this is an answer to your question, how do we want children to learn? And then choosing the most appropriate strategies, concepts and skills to enable that to occur. Jayshree, some more questions or just observations from the floor?
Yeah, so there are quite a few observations here. Breaking the timetable barrier in the online space is commendable. I think, yeah, even I thought it was commendable because, that is something to do with coming out of your comfort zone. So not having a timetable or breaking the timetable is, I think, commendable. So I think this was I think Trapti mentioned this. So Trapti, could you just say a little more about how did it take? I mean, as a principal, I'm sure this is one of the things that you did behind the scenes for your experiential learning program to be implemented, right? So if you could talk about that a little more in detail, it might be helpful.
I would just say that it was something that my teachers did, and they told me later that we are meeting the students in the evening, and they took the initiative themselves, and they started off with these small group meetings with the children on experiential learning program, because they had their queries which could not be sorted online when the teachers were teaching. They had their timetable to teach other classes, not just one class. So whenever they had time, they would get together, have a discussion, even for 15 minutes or 20 minutes at a time, not necessarily for an hour or so. So this really helped the children to be able to connect with each other, have discussions, and have that sense of connectedness even in the time when, which was most difficult. They were not meeting their friends, not coming out of their homes. So when they meet with the teacher in small groups, the kind of bond that they form is really very, soothing. It tells them that there is someone with them besides the family who knows them, knows their strengths, knows their weaknesses. So it really went a long way in building the relationship between the students themselves and between the teacher and the student groups. This we did it not just for the experiential learning program, but also for the pre-primary students and the primary students. There are all sorts of students it's a mixed classroom where some of the children are very engaged, they're very involved, they're the first ones to raise their hand and answer a question even in the online mode. But there are some who are in their shells, who are hesitant to even switch on the camera because they know their houses are small, they're sharing the same room with maybe two other siblings, or some other personal problems might be there which we know about, but I don't want to share them here. So that was the time for these students. Also the teachers formed personal interaction classes in the evening they would have. We continued with the activity classes for music and dance and yoga and things like that to keep them engaged. So these were classes that were taking place in the evenings at all times. So wherever possible, whatever possible the teachers could do to make sure that all the children were involved. Some children came up with really beautiful songs for Independence Day programs, for Christmas carols, and you could see that the talent that was hidden could really be molded into, to take shape into something very appreciable.
I think I heard two things there. One, and I saw it in one of the chats early on, really was the word autonomy, because that's effectively what you were talking about there, Trapti, about the children becoming owners of their own learning, and the other around breaking the timetable. JC, I wondered whether or not there's anyone who is part of the this webinar today who's got an example of how they might have increased autonomy or actually broken down the timetable to create something that would help learning and promote collaboration.
Yeah, so the floor is open. Anybody wants to share something that you've done in your school in terms of student autonomy or breaking the timetable schedule and looking at it in a different way?
May I say something?
Yes, sure.
I'm Asha Sharma from Kuwait, and we picked up some of the things during this time that in order to accelerate their learning, whenever our lesson, any lesson finished, we had the exit pass in which the recap of the lesson was taken. And through the exit pass, we used to come to know that how much receptive were the children and where are the problems. And where we found too much of a problem and we can't take everybody along in the class, then we took a separate sessions with those students in order to clarify their doubts. This helped them to come at the level of the class in the next lesson itself. And teachers did devote extra time with the children, and those children without any feeling of that they are lagging behind in the class, they were at par and the equity was there. in the class. So I think we could attain this equity by having the exit pass, which is a very good system, and it brings the class at a level and we can address the problems simultaneously. Thank you very much.
Asha, thanks ever so much. Is there someone else? I want to pick up on something Asha said then. Is there anyone else who'd like to mention something that they did, either in increasing autonomy or in breaking down the normal timetable to enable something more interesting to occur? This is where the nerve of the school leader is really important. And in this case, he lives through the silences, hoping that someone is going to come up with an observation, no matter how small.
I would like to mention one more thing, if I'm permitted to.
Of course, Asha, and I think there's someone after you as well, so please carry on.
Yes. Actually, during this period of time, what I found that so many leaders emerged in the school. So many persons that took up the responsibilities, like as a principal, I was always writing the circulars to the parents, to the students. And we were having, whenever we were inviting the children for any inter-house competition or other competitions, so much of involvement was more of, you can say, of the principal in writing the circulars and all. Here I saw the class reps, representatives of the class, they made the invites for every competition, and I tell you, they were unparalleled. They were so beautiful, so inviting, and they could take in so many children to participate, and the way they appealed to the students, it was just mind-blowing. And I have declared in my school that in future I will not write, you all are going to write. So I feel this type of leadership has been taken by them, and they have proved their mettle. And it is an opportunity which has come to them. And I think if they are given little independence and we just trust our second command in leadership, I think they can do wonderful works, and the school can go ahead. You can say it can propel the progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Asha. I think there was one other person that was about to speak.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I'm Rafataya from City Montessori School, Chalk campus. So, in this online classes, in these classes, we experienced that the children came out of the shells, like when they were in their houses, even on the topics that we were talking about, like taking up shapes. They were so excited, and not one or two are the brilliant ones who were always putting up their hands, but also the children who were not speaking much. They used to bring the objects from their houses. They used to take the clock and show, ma'am, this is circle. They used to bring the plates. They used to bring their glasses for showing the shapes. And also for nouns, like taking up things in the houses, all things that was available here and there. So they were taking things around and they were speaking on them. So these classes online classes gave lot of confidence to the children. And as we say in CMS, give them the joy of learning, and learning will follow. So they had a lot of joy while learning, and they learned through each other's experiences. And it was really great to see them speaking and taking active part in teaching learning process. Thank you, sir.
I love it. Any more thoughts?
Can I just share something very, very simple? But what I realized was that, during the day, during the middle part of the day, the online attendance would fall. And like first period, it was 40, 42, and then it would go to 12, 16. And teachers were really, they were talking to children, asking them to come, but nothing was working. And then one day we decided to speak to the student council. So we had a meeting with the student council, and we asked them that, would you like to do something about it? What do you feel are the impacts of this? And they said, yes, I think we should take the conversation to everybody. And they, in their house meetings, in smaller groups, they started discussing this problem, that what is happening and how demotivating it could be for teachers if we are not there when they are making so much effort. And the attendance went up dramatically because the student took it upon themselves. So I think the way conversations are taking place, that whole setup has changed, and the level of conversation has changed. And that is, I think, the best outcome of blended learning.
Yes, Mr.
please.
Afroz Ahmed has raised his hand. Would you like to say something?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, Miss Afroz.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good evening, sir. So I just want to say that during online timetable, we were having the online assembly also of the students. So the assembly students, like suppose when my class turn of the assembly, so a day before assembly students said, "Ma'am, please take my online practice of the assembly so that the pronunciation is correct." So I used to take the online practice during the evening time. So that was the breaking the timetable. That was very good. So students joined, like a small group of students joined, and I took the practice of them. That's all. Thank you, sir.
May I, sir?
That's really interesting. Can I just ask all of you to reflect for a moment? 1C in leadership and management of the ADIAN review talks about leaders working alongside, modeling good practice and monitoring and evaluating. Something I've heard today is that, and I know we're talking about the curriculum here, is that we seem much more interested today in having a first-hand view of what the curriculum looks like, the curriculum delivery looks like, by getting inside there ourselves. Is that true for many of you? I found that I've visited more classrooms since we've been online than I ever did, if only for the fact that I don't have to walk out of one classroom and into another. Would anyone like to talk about their experience of how that has enriched, and whether or not in your school it's not just you, but there are other leaders who are doing that? Maybe if we could pick up on our three to begin with, to Nisha and Shipra and Trapti, and then ask anyone else if they'd like to make an observation around that. Nisha, I saw you nodding your head vigorously.
I think this online classes, have given us the opportunity as leaders to visit, I think, more number of classes than we've ever done. We've been taking learning walks in our corridors while the schools were on. But this pandemic gave us the time to walk into the classrooms and spend a significant amount of time watching, learning, and observing what was happening in the classes. So we've tried to gather first-hand evidences. We've spoken to the students. We've observed the lessons. We've looked at their work. And I consider this was absolutely, marvelous. And it has significantly improved the learning, the teaching and the learning outcomes that I have personally observed this.
And the children love it, don't they?
Absolutely.
I did an interview with someone internationally 2 weeks ago, and it was in a KG classroom. And so while it was happening, I sort of went in there, and suddenly I heard, "Hello, Spokey sir," and that sense of collaboration and engagement is lovely. Shipra, Trapti, has that been similar for you as well?
I would like to say that exactly the same thing happened when we were observing the classes. My table, I converted it into a mini dashboard. I had 3 computers here where I could log into the different classrooms and be there. And mostly it was muted so that they couldn't hear I was doing work here or meeting parents. But they would see me, they would see my login ID, and suddenly I would get Jai Jagat Principal Ma'am on the chat box. And sometimes in between the changeover time, when one teacher is logging out and other is logging in, I had the opportunity to chat with the children. So then that was the time I really liked it. And when the school is vacant and there are no students around, it was such a emotionally touching feeling to be able to get in touch with the children, see their faces and talk to them. So that was my real, it gave me such a lot of positivity to see that my students are there online, they're learning online. And I would take a feedback. There were some new teachers, so I would ask, are you able to understand the new teacher is teaching you now? So that kind of interaction continued throughout the pandemic. So it was never that we were out of touch and we were locked into different classrooms. We could skip from one class to the other, whether it was from Montessori right up to class 10, 11, and see what is going on, what kind of worksheets, what kind of tools, flipped learning when we introduced it, how the children are using it as a means to show how much they have learned. So it was really very interesting how the children picked up the tools, they were using the tools, educational tools, for designing quizzes and making presentations. So that was really very interesting.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to say out here, what I observed was during these online classes, while in some junior or senior classes, we would see some cameras switched off, but in the pre-primary and the primary, there was never a dull moment. The children were active, their cameras were switched on, they were lively, vibrant classes. So I felt there was, a lot of good activities happening in the pre-primary classes, and that was really amazing, absolutely stunning. And the most significant part was that the Montessorians who walked into the school for the first time, into the online space, the classes were being conducted in pure English. And what we've noticed that the spoken English level of the students has really significantly improved.
This is a really interesting story, isn't it? Is the what's
Yes.
the risk? Oh, go on, please.
I think Shipra was going to share before Alfia.
Yes. Yes. Good afternoon.
Yeah. So we'll just
Yes.
wait for Shipra to share, Alfia.
All right. All right. I'll wait. I'll wait.
I just wanted to add that, with the my pre-primary, we had the highest attendance. And though it began at, 7:50 in the morning, even during the winter months, we had all these energetic people sitting with their red sweaters on, sitting right in front of the camera because they wanted to meet the teachers. And I became a recognized figure. Otherwise, it is like, they would see me somewhere remotely, moving around and doing things, not being there as such. For them, the teacher is the only important component. But now they came to know that they have a principal, and she's somebody who visits and who talks and who tells stories. So it was such a good connect that we created, and their enthusiasm was boundless. So I think that was very truly inspirational.
I love that. Afro's, last word from you.
Alfia?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, go on.
Good evening, everyone. I am Alifia Liaquat from Kuwait. I am a supervisor of LKG and UKG. And what I have experienced during this year, we have done beautiful and so many activities. And usually what happens is like, what I felt is this year, because they were at home, they brought so many things, and they used to, like one ma'am told, like, no, they were bringing cups and plates and so many things to show their teachers. And when I, as a coordinator, we used to make recordings, a small 10 minutes, 5 minutes recordings, and used to send them every day. They used to watch that. Though I was not taking classes, but I was doing the recordings for them. And whenever I used to enter the class, they used to recognize me. Okay, this is Alifia ma'am, because they were watching my recordings, and they used to talk to me. So that is so beautiful. They connect, even though we were sending them the recordings, but the recordings were so beautiful. We used to use a lot of puppets and a lot of animation at the background. And then every week we used to do so many activities and so many virtual trips. We have given them the virtual trips to the supermarket. We have given a virtual trip to see the 7 wonders of the world. We have done origami with them. We have done, in fact, all the celebrations like Christmas celebration, Republic Day celebration. Then we have played bingo games. Then name activities and handwriting competitions, and they used to love it. And what we felt is they were so enthusiastic, because they used to know that they are on their comfort zone, and they are at home with their parents, their cousins, and they used to show that this is my teacher. They are showing to their siblings, and this is my teacher, and I love my teacher. And daily, when they were doing all these activities, they were so enthusiastic. So I really want to, this year we have done so many activities which usually we were not getting an opportunity to do. But since it is
So there's a
virtual,
really important story here, I think. And
yes,
thank you. And I love the exhilaration and the excitement in your voice when you talk about that. Is
thank you,
that
sir. Thank
the
you.
story is a really powerful one. The story is about increased collaboration. The story is about greater stakeholder engagement. The story is beginning to use, if we hadn't, or more extensively to use data, not simply to determine who does best, but to identify need, and most importantly, to be able to support the welfare and well-being of children. The story is around our leadership becoming more distributed, and our leadership being more visible. There's some really interesting research around followership, and the idea that followers choose whether or not someone is a leader. They may have a boss, but they may not choose to follow them. It's an interesting thought that the freedoms that we can experience within the curriculum, and the degree to which our teachers and our students start to realize greater autonomy, and they see us inside of their classrooms, the opportunity for us to be able to lead by showing them the most thing that we are most interested in is that which occurs inside the classroom, behind the classroom door. There are as many reasons why the virtual world has been challenging and disturbing as there are for it being an excitement and an opportunity for innovation. All of us are on a journey now. The journey was never or not whether we should go back to school, but when or how. I think all of our prayers are that we won't go back to where we were, we'll go back to somewhere that is even better than we were. And it is that opportunity for all of us to come together, which has been just brilliant. So to Nisha, to Trapti, to Shipra, thank you so much. It's been lovely listening to your stories. And the fact that we've kept pretty well 100 people in the room for the whole of this last hour and a half just tells you how compelling that story is. Thank you so much indeed. Neha and Jayshree, over to you. Thank you, guys. And I'm going to do my silent applause.
Thank you very much. There was one hand raised. Aditi, you had raised your hand. Would you like to say something? We have a last 1 minute left.
Thank you, Neha. No, I think we've already got a big representation from CMS.
Okay.
Where Rafat already is one of my own teachers, where she narrated her thing. It's just that I think it's been an amazing journey for all of us, and there's been so much of learning and collaboration this year across our campuses, along with the children, and with all the stakeholders. We've got the parents involved, we've got the students involved, the teachers involved, and every stakeholder which we wouldn't have otherwise been able to involve in a regular school day has been a part of this learning journey this year. So it's just been an amazing experience. And congratulations to Nisha, Trapti and Shipra for the wonderful presentations and such lovely insight that they've shared with us. Thanks to everybody. Thank you, Neha, for giving me an opportunity to put in my 2 bit.
Okay. So Thank you. Thank you very much once again. Thank you, Nisha, Trapti, and Shipra for taking out time to be with us and sharing your stories. And a big thanks to the audience today. And I'm sure you've taken some great wisdom from our speakers. And thank you very much, Spooky. Having you over is always such a pleasure. And so we hope to see you a fortnight from now. We have the last of the 6-part series, and we would be talking about community and partnerships and looking at how we could do that in a blended school. So thank you and see you.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.